Good.
Yes, good so far.
The sun is shining, the birds are singing. Who
Yes.
would know that there's so much trouble in the big wide world, right?
Hmm.
All right, guys, I'm almost ready. I guess I need to share my screen. All right. Can everyone see my screen? Thumbs up or say yes, it's good.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, very good, very good. Okay, welcome, guys. Today, what we're going to do is we are going to be talking about how to commit to your one thing. We're going to define what your one thing is, and we're going to do our very best to commit to it. So, here's what this is going to look like. We're going to talk about the life of a real estate agent from the perspective of time management. We're going to talk about what does it mean to succeed in time management as a real estate agent. Then I'm going to take you through some frames of reference, if you will, some ways of thinking about this. What is the 80-20 rule? What does it mean to be efficient versus being effective? Um, what is the one thing rule? What tools do we have to get better at managing our time? Then we're going to go through some very common misconceptions about how time works. And then hopefully there'll be some time for some questions and some discussion of it. Does that sound okay to you guys?
Yes.
Awesome. So the typical real estate agent scenario, we have lots and lots and lots of short distractions, whether it's coming from this guy or whether it's coming from someone in our circles, or it's coming from the environment where we are, we get distracted. And sometimes for longer periods of times, but mostly short, stupid little things. Like if we're working from home, a child comes in and needs something. Or if we're working at the office, a colleague comes by and needs or wants something, right? Or our phone beeps with a notification or something. So this is true for anyone in the work world, but it's certainly true for us. And the other thing about real estate is that we're working from home more and more. I am sure that some of you on this call are at home. Some of you might be in your cars. I don't know if anyone is actually at one of the offices. Are any of you at one of the offices? Patrick, yay. Okay. The next thing that makes time management really unique for us is that unlike a W-2 job, like a job where we get paid every week and all that stuff, we're our own boss, which means we get to choose in almost every moment of every day what we do with that precious time we have. We are accountable to no one but ourselves. I mean, you might have accountability partners like me or a spouse or a colleague and some other colleague. But at the end of the day, we have to report to ourselves about how we spent our day. We are in just constant self-judgment about how we spent our time. And as humans, we struggle. We struggle to be organized and to manage our time well. Does anyone disagree with any of that? Does it all ring true, right? It rings true. So this course, or rather this class, is all kind of based on a book called The One Thing. The One Thing is a very easy to read. It's about a 150-page book. It's written by Gary Keller, who is one of the co-founders of Keller Williams. And it's not a book about real estate. It's a book about all of the stuff I'm going to share with you and a lot more. So I recommend everybody read it. It should be required reading for any student of time by anybody who wants to do better managing their time. I choose to believe that if we have some intentionality and some mindfulness, we can achieve our goals despite a very unstable environment, a world environment, a real estate environment, and things that cause us stress. So we're going to skip that. The one thing rule, the main idea, the whole book, it asks this question. What is the one thing you can do such that by doing it, everything else will be either easier or unnecessary? That's the one thing rule. There is always one thing you can do that will make everything else easier or unnecessary. Now, there are different one things for different spheres in your life. So spiritually, physically, personal life, key relationships, job, business, and finances. Every one of those spheres has a one thing. Now, as real estate agents, you have a business. You're running a real estate business, and you're also in a job as the key CEO, main person of your real estate business. So there are different things you're doing that are focused on building a business versus doing the work of a real estate agent on a day-to-day basis. And we make these distinctions consciously, knowing that real estate agents who start thinking about their real estate as a business, they end up growing teams and learning how to be good leaders and good administrators of their own affairs in business. And we teach all that stuff. So for example, for your business, a one thing might be to have a really solid lead generation plan for your sphere of influence. Your 36 touch plan, for example, might be the one thing for your business. Now, for your job, we're going to talk about that in a minute. The 80-20 rule. This is the idea that 20% of effort leads to 80% of results. There was a famous study done about this in the previous century, a long time ago, in the early part of the 20th century. And they found that this idea goes far beyond, it influences all the spheres. And its efforts and results is the most generic way of looking at it. But another way of looking at it is that 20% of real estate agents get 80% of the business, right? So there's a lot of different ways to think about that. So if it's true, and we believe it to be, that 20% of the work leads to 80% of the results, then we need to identify what effort is going to be that thing. What moves forward your life goal? So, for example, in each one of these spheres, what one thing moves your business success forward more than anything else? How do you measure what you should do versus what you could do? And if you know what those different things are, and you look at it in terms of your weekly, what you're doing every week in your work, how much time is spent doing that 20% work? These are all questions that you are going to need to explore for each of you on your own. So, question, and you can put your answer in the chat or you can shout it out. I'm good either way. What is the 20% work of a real estate agent, day in, day out?
Lead gen.
Yes, lead gen. Excellent. It is lead gen. If you are doing, would you agree, Sharon, that if you did 1/5 of every day doing lead gen, week in, week out, that everything else would be easier or unnecessary? Certainly easier.
100%.
Right? Because if you
Yes.
do lead gen, you're going to get leads. That's why it's called lead gen. You're going to get leads, and those leads are going to lead to appointments, and those appointments are going to lead to clients, and those clients are going to lead to contracts and sales and money and success, financial
Definitely.
success. So, yeah, that is the 20% work day in, day out of a real estate agent. Now, another concept we want to think about here is the idea of efficiency versus effectiveness. And I was just teaching this morning in our Palo Alto office about this idea of efficiency. You want to be efficient with that 80% work that isn't driving forward your 20% work. The work that is not your 20% work, you want to get it done fast, and you do not want to get dawdling and have it be any more than it absolutely has to be. A way of looking at this is perfection is the enemy of progress. You should not be spending one more second than you absolutely have to developing that beautiful flyer or postcard or that Instagram reel and re-editing it and re-editing it and re-editing it. That's 80% work. But for your 20% work, your lead gen work, you want to be effective. So you want it to be everything you're all about when you're doing it. And it's a must do every day. So when you are out doing door knocking, you're not answering emails or doing texts while you're walking between each house, right? When you are doing phone calls, you're doing phone calls. You're not responding to notifications on your phone or interacting with other people about who won the big game the night before or whatever, right? So when we think about our 20% work, we want to be effective. When we want to think about our 80% work, we just want to get it done, obviously professionally, but not, it doesn't need to be perfect. So your typical day, the average person is on the left-hand side, we hope. The ideal person is on the right-hand side. If you spent every morning in a lead gen modality, whether that was knocking on doors or making phone calls and all that stuff, and then you could just do appointments. There are agents who structure their business around this way. They do appointments and I do everything else in the afternoon. Now, obviously, that doesn't, and you're a brand new agent, there's certain classes you have to take in the mornings. I get that. And, offices have team meetings in the mornings. But if you had a structure that had more time in it for lead gen, that would be better. For the more time you can focus on your one thing, the better. So I want to open it up for a verbal conversation. You can come off of mute. And I want you to discuss these two questions. Number one, what challenges do you yourself have right now with time management? And what techniques are you using right now to help you be more effective with your time? I'd like to hear what people have to say.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you great. Thanks, Patrick.
Yeah. So my challenges are oftentimes I have things scheduled, but then I got like gotchas, I'll have my wife like ping me and says, "Oh, I need you to do this," and it's like, "Well, I wasn't planning to do that," and stuff like that. So, I try to schedule, my time, but it's what I call creep, scope creep. There's things just come up that were unplanned, and then it just messes up my schedule. And I need to be more disciplined and committed. But sometimes it's like, well, you know, someone that's requesting, like my wife or my mother-in-law, I have to do something for them, and it just messes up my schedule. And then I just either have to do it later on that evening, or I'll postpone it for the next day. So
Right. And when you're in those moments, you make a conscious decision or maybe subconscious decision not to push back. You
Mhm.
make the decision to allow the distraction to happen. Is that fair?
Yeah.
So the question then is why, right? And this is not my question to answer, but certainly worth asking yourself the question, am I saying yes to this distraction to keep peace, to avoid a fight? Are people disrespecting my boundaries? Is there a way that I can share boundaries in a way that will not have this happen as much for certain periods of time? Would it be okay for me to push back in the moment and say, I'm doing this now. I'll get to you later. I promise I will, but it's going to be later. Anyway, I know married life, so I totally understand. I'm just saying, we do have control in any moment over how we respond to things. And sometimes boundaries are helpful and can be really actually avoid resentment and disappointment. And so we're going to look at some boundary techniques a little later. So thank you so much for sharing that, Patrick.
Yep.
Did anyone else have any thoughts about where your challenges are right now with time management or any special techniques that you like to use?
Well, for me, I
Yeah.
think, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay, Ruth first, then Sharon.
For me, the challenge was similar to Patrick, where put things in my calendar, but something comes up.
Right.
And then there's work, there's the family. So, before I didn't have a schedule. I didn't enter much on my calendar, but now I am. The technique that I'm using is making sure that I have things in the calendar and going by the calendar, unless it's an emergency that somebody's dying, which is basically boundaries, right?
Yeah, but
Uh,
that's the biggest part of calendaring is so the first step of calendaring is writing it down, and the second step is honoring your own calendar. We're going to talk about that. I love it. I love that you've moved in that direction because you've taken control of your work life, your whole life. You know, guys, I live and die by my calendar. I use techniques and tools to make sure that I am there for you guys as much as I can possibly be, but that when you're scheduling your meetings, I already know that you're not going to schedule them on top of something else I have to do because I use tools for scheduling. And so, that way I can be there for the meetings you schedule with me when we schedule them. So, I totally love that, Ruth. I love it. Sharon, what were you going to add?
I was going to say that, like, my my biggest obstacle, I think it's myself, because I always find things that I'm like, oh, maybe I can do this and then do the other thing. It's
Yes.
just there's so much room to compromise and change plans, and things are so fluid.
I completely agree. May I ask you a question?
Yes, please.
Do you ever find that the things that you end up doing were less unpleasant or more fun than the thing that you chose to not do?
I think it depends on the thing itself. Sometimes it's unpleasant. Sometimes I'm like, why did I do it? Like it was total waste of time.
So there are two
Uh,
things going on here, right? There's distraction. Oh, that just is like the squirrel. You guys ever see the movie Up? There's a very famous Pixar movie called Up, where
yeah.
with the old guy goes up in the house and with the balloons.
Hmm.
Anyway, there's some scenes in it with the dog, and he sees a squirrel and squirrel, squirrel, squirrel. So distraction is one part of what you're describing, I think. But the other thing you're talking about is procrastination.
Yes.
Because sometimes I have found, I'm speaking for myself here, sometimes I have a Sunday morning and I have 2 hours on Sunday morning, maybe even three, and I want to work on 6 projects. And one of the projects is more fun than the other project. And I might end up using 2.5 of my 3 hours on that fun project. And then I look, it's 11:30 and I've only got a half an hour left for the less fun things, which were arguably more important for my business or for my one thing or whatever.
Hmm.
So this is one of my challenges. Um, and it does take a tremendous amount of self-discipline to
Yeah.
to stay focused. Have you guys ever heard the saying, work expands to fill the time allotted? Have you ever noticed when you're about to go on vacation, as I'm about to do in the next few days, that you get everything, like you find time for all those super important things and you're able to do them way faster than they normally would take because you got to get them done. You can't leave them undone. You're going on vacation. So something that might take you 45 minutes, you do in 15 perfectly adequately, right? Um, but yet if you allowed an hour for it because you weren't in a rush you didn't have a hard stop or anything, you would take the whole time and you would fine tune it and it wouldn't be dramatically better. So thank you
Yeah.
guys for sharing that. So what I want to look at now is some of the techniques and things that are relevant for getting better at overcoming all of these challenges. So here's a list. Certainly Ruth touched on it. Calendaring is absolutely critical. People who write stuff down generally do better than people who don't write it down. And calendaring it is writing it down. There's a thing called a 1-3-5. Now, if you've been through my business planning clinic, I know that most of you on this call have, but there's at least one of you who have not, two of you have not. I teach you all about the 1-3-5. We're going to look at a version of it here. Then there's the 4-1-1. Those are both of those second and third things are Keller Williams time management tools and goal setting tools. There are apps you can buy, which are a lot of fun. They gamify doing the thing you need to do. They gamify habitual behavior, and you get points, you get bonuses and dopamine hits on your phone if you keep a streak. So I've been studying Spanish using Duolingo. Is anyone here familiar with Duolingo, the language learning app? I've been studying Spanish on it. I'm on like a 370-day streak. And even though I really have no time to learn a language, I do Duolingo. I'm learning Spanish for 3 to 5 minutes every night time before bed because I don't want to lose my streak. I was in Mexico just before the holidays, and it was it was the first time in a year, and my Spanish was better. I knew more vocabulary. I was able to have simple conversations because I spent 3 minutes to 5 minutes an evening for the previous year using this app. So you can use apps on your phone. There's 2 of them mentioned here, but there's lots of them to help you with habit forming, whether that be lead gen or going to the gym or doing some eating habit thing you need to do, drinking water, whatever it is. These things can be really, really helpful. A commitment to self-motivation and self-discipline is an asset. If you've always struggled to take charge of your day, there are all kinds of power that comes when you're able to do it. If you go through the end of the day and you have accomplished, you are tracking what your tasks were that you did and how you felt about it, and what you completed, you often will see that you've completed more than you thought you did. And your real estate lead gen is, if you get into a habit where you're doing that every day at a consistent time, the rest of your day can become incredibly empowering. What would you say if you had all your lead gen done every day by 10 in the morning? There are people who model it that way. They get up at 4 or 5 and do their personal rituals, and then they get on the phone from 9 to 11 or something, and then the rest of the day is like wide open to them what they choose to do with it. That can be incredibly self-motivating and create self-discipline. Another idea I want to share with you guys are accountability tools, like having somebody to keep tab on how you're doing and give you feedback on it. You guys are in a program right now which provides a level of accountability, and there are other ways to do it. So I'm going to go into some of these a little bit more. This is the 4-1-1. This is the 4-1-1 tool, and it is a Keller Williams thing. You can get it on paper, you can get digital versions. But what you do with this tool and you normally do this at the beginning of the year, at the end of the previous year, is you write down your annual goals. Those could be business or personal. And then you say, okay, what do I want to do in the month of, say, January towards that goal? And then what does each week look like in terms of that goal? Now, for you guys, you do this business planning clinic with me. And so in terms of um, sales goals and real estate business development goals, you already know how many conversations you need to have each year. You can divide it by 12, so you know how many you need to have each month. And you've already got the weekly numbers from your business planning worksheet. You can add into this educational elements. You can add into this um, uh, uh, education training, and you can also add into it non-real estate things like a commitment to self-care or to vacation time or stuff like that. We have clinics. We have clinics on this on a semi-regular basis, including 2 every year that are run by a top producing and a leader in Keller Williams in California by the name of Rob Eigner. His classes are great, and he helps you to figure this stuff out. So that's the 411. It is in your business plan. If you go to your business planning worksheet that you did with me, even if it's been a few weeks, there's a tab at there's a tab number 11 or 12, I think, that is a digital version of this. Now, this is a 135, and this is very similar to tab number 9 on the business planning worksheet. You have 3 main objectives. So maybe your goal is lead gen, as it is when we do business planning. And the 3 objectives are the 3 ways you're going to do lead gen, and then the 5 strategies up underneath each one. This is a model for planning an intentional strategy around lead gen, but maybe it's something more specific. Maybe you're planning to go to Bold. You're going to go to the first step to Bold, and then you're going to take the Bold class. You can develop a 135 around what you want to achieve there and strategies you're going to do that. Or maybe you're going to Family Reunion at the end of February, our annual sales conference, same idea. So this is just a useful planning tool. Again, by writing it down, you're already more likely to succeed than if you don't. So the next thing I want to go through is the time management matrix. This is a way of thinking about all the things that happen in a given day. So in the top left corner, in the yellow quadrant, we have things that are urgent and important. A crisis, an emergency. For example, you get a call that I want to say, I don't want to be triggering, but something bad happens where someone has to go to the hospital or an animal needs to be taken to the vet or something like that. Those would qualify as urgent and important, right? I mentioned deadline-driven projects. I told you that I'm rushing to get certain things done because it's a deadline. I'm not going to be able to do them for a week after I go away. So that's a deadline-driven project. Last-minute preparations. If you're going away on a trip, you need to pack. You need to notify who's going to cat sit for you. For this is personal examples. Who's going to walk the dog? Who's going to water the plants? Right? I'm just thinking about vacation, but these are urgent and important things. They're driven by a deadline often, right? Then let's going down. The green one are things that are urgent, but they are not the slightest bit important. So we talked about interruptions. I think it was Ruth who mentioned it, right? Certainly some phone calls, some mail and email, some meetings, not this one, of course, many pressing matters that is really, really super important to other people, not so important for you. Popular activities are urgent if they're deadline based. So for example, let's suppose you're a Swiftie and Taylor Swift is going to be performing in concert and it's a one night only thing. I don't know where she's at. Let's say she's at the Chase Center in downtown San Francisco. That is a popular activity, not particularly, I mean, important in most people's lives, but urgent. I'm not saying you shouldn't go, by the way. I'm just saying she belongs in the green category. Going across from there, we have section 4. You want to stay out of section 4 as much as possible because it can overwhelm and waste away your whole day. Busy work. Busy work is work you do so you don't have to do other work. I can't tell you guys how many times that I've been sitting when I'm not in an appointment or something, but I'm supposed to be working on a project, and instead I decide to review all my emails for the last 3 months to make sure I didn't miss anything. I'm not being productive. I'm wasting my time. I'm creating work that isn't necessary. Trivial activities. Speaking of trivial activities, I am the worst offender for playing games on my phone. Maybe not the worst offender, but I rank up there with how much time I spend playing stupid games on my phone. Some calls and emails are not productive for business, not urgent, and not important. Now, escape activities are an evasion, they're a procrastination. That's why they're under 4. Time wasters, again, the games on the phone, or they are not necessarily helping you. So number 2, the red box, is where we want to live. As much as possible, we want to be in 2 with occasional excursions into the yellow box. So what is 2? Preparation, planning, and prevention. That's right now. Right now, we're in the first bullet and the third bullet. Clarification of values. That is very valuable, very good and important thing to do. What's important, what's not important. Understanding what your true priorities are. Capability improvement, classes. Classes that will make you better, that will give you new skill sets, allow you to think about things differently so you can be more productive. Relationship building, that's lead gen, guys. Talking to other humans to build relationships. And by the way, they don't necessarily need to result in a sale to be valuable. And then true recreation and relaxation that restores your body and mind are all very, very important. All of these things in 2, none of them are urgent. None of them, the sky is going to fall if you don't do them immediately right now. But they're all going to help you to have a better feeling about your day at the end of it, for sure. So let's talk about calendaring a bit. What should come first? This is a question, open question. Please shout out. What should come first when you create your calendar? What's the first thing you should put? Imagine a blank calendar. What's the first thing?
Well, create a list.
Create a list. Well, what would be the first thing on the list? So let's suppose you create a
Legion.
list of 10 things and you got to fill the calendar now. What should come first?
Lead gen.
No. Good guess.
Eat breakfast.
Okay, you're getting there. Sharon, did you say something?
Sleep.
Sleep. That's on the right track too.
Get
All
out
right.
of bed.
So Sharon was closest. Sharon and Patrick are closest.
I mean, like, we
Your-
have to differentiate when, like, it's the active time and non-active times somehow,
Yeah,
right?
maybe. So I was thinking about waking time,
Mm.
not sleeping time. So the first thing you should schedule is personal health. And that means what hours are you going to plan to sleep, right? What are you going to do? When are you going to sleep? What's your wellness things that you do? Meditation, exercise, yoga, whatever it is. When is that happening? I think that's really important. You know, when I started in real estate, well, I'll get to that in a minute. But I think it's very important to be thinking about this because a healthy body is fine, but if you don't have a healthy mind, your healthy body ain't going to matter. Taking care of yourself is so important. The second thing I want you to do with your calendars is to schedule non-work where rest and play and maybe some of this personal health stuff is going to happen. When I started in real estate, right from the very beginning, I said, I am not going to work on Fridays. Back in the day, we didn't have cell phone texting. I think we had cell phones, but we didn't have texting. And I had a voicemail message. Back in the day, everyone, listened to voicemail messages. And my voicemail message said, I am available Saturday through Thursday. I'm not available on Fridays. Leave me a message. I'll get back to you the next day. I tried very hard not to work on Fridays. Now, at that time, I didn't have any leverage. It was basically just me. And sometimes I did have to work on Fridays. And then I would try very hard to not make that a real exception and not the rule. I also scheduled that I also told people in my voicemail message that I wasn't available after 7 p.m. And if someone called me after 7 p.m., I probably wouldn't answer my phone unless we were in the middle of a negotiation and it was absolutely critical and time sensitive. It could wait till the next day. So that is a kind of a boundary. The third thing you should schedule, and this is where Ruth's idea comes in, is your one thing work. In your case, lead gen. That comes after you've scheduled the other two. By the way, guys, just for interest, my day off nowadays is Saturdays, not Fridays. So if you guys tried to reach me on Fridays, I would normally be able to text you back right away. Anyway, after you schedule that, you're more or less done. The rest of your calendar should remain open for open-ended getting appointments, scheduling appointments, classes, everything. By the way, up in number 1 there is where doctor appointments go. That's under personal health time. That should be scheduled ahead of this stuff. All right, so when we're thinking about our one thing, you want to schedule it as early in the day as possible. My recommendation is you use your Google Calendar or your calendar notebook or whatever you use and color code each of the classifications of how you're spending your day according to this chart. As you plan it out for the future and see just how much red you have, how much yellow and green, okay? And then it is recommended that you review your calendar once a week, at least once a week. So some things to think about with calendaring. If you're going to get serious about this, if it isn't on your calendar, it doesn't exist. It's pretty simple. If it isn't on your calendar, it ain't happening. Next idea. If you erase it, replace it, specifically with regard to your 20% work. If you say, oh, I can't do lead gen, the only appointment I could get with the doctor was during the hours, I'll do lead gen in the afternoon. Or the thinking should be, when am I going to put that lead gen back in my calendar? I'm just going to do it in the afternoon, and you update your calendar. So if you erase it, replace it. I also recommend gaps between appointments. Just actually schedule at least 15 minutes between appointments, maybe a half an hour for resetting. We all go into these meetings, and sometimes the meetings make us feel things or give us a high, and we got all these ideas in our head or whatever. The brain needs time to reset. So I always recommend don't schedule appointments back to back to back to back as much as you can avoid it. So here's a visual of it. Here's a visual of it from the book. You got your vacation on there. You've got the one thing in the morning every day. And then you've got planning, which includes reviewing the calendar every weekend on Sunday for this person. So some ideas. This gets to the boundary stuff we were talking about before. I recommend that you, especially if you're working from home, discuss your work time with your loved ones. And they may be working too, and how you're going to each honor each other's space during that time. Sometimes those conversations aren't easy to have. So One way is to set up a location in your home or workspace that is quiet and away from potential distractions. If you're working from home, I recommend you dress for work each morning. Dress up a little bit. Just dress business style, not casual beach wear, right? And if you're working from home or whether you're not working from home, try to start your work at the same time every day. Bring some discipline to your timeline around work. As much as you can handle, turn off phone notifications. You know, you might be a game junkie or a news junkie or a social media junkie and have all this stuff popping up. You can turn off those notifications. You can use Do Not Disturb. You can use focus modes. The ways that you can protect yourself from distraction on your phone have actually improved in the last 5 years from before. So these are things you can use built into your phones to help you from being bothered during really critical time. I mean, you wouldn't think of having your phone on if you're a decent human at a movie theater during the movie. You know, apart from the fact they give you all these warnings when you go to the movie house saying, turn off your cell phone. So most people honor that, most. And that's because, you know, we want to focus on the movie. Let's focus on lead gen the same way we focus on the movie on the big screen. Avoid non-essential email and text. So one way that I do this is I actually have an email address that none of you know for non-work email that I don't want to be bothered by while I am working. Physical environment. So I have never been an incredibly neat and tidy person. So I have a problem with clutter around my desk. And when the clutter is there, it is actually easy to be distracted by it. You look over and you see that bill that you were supposed to pay and you realize you didn't pay it. And now all of a sudden you're thinking, oh my God, I better pay it. And then you don't do the other work you're supposed to do. So it's good to have a tidy workspace just from that perspective. You can advertise. You can advertise that you are in protected time. I'm going to show you a picture in a moment. Learn how to say no to distractors. Okay, us real estate agents, it's really hard for us to say no. We really, really struggle with saying no. We want to say yes to everybody. Of course we can help you. But you need to be able to say no to people who are people and situations that are demanding time that, you know, or asking for time that you don't have to give them. It's okay to say no. You could also say not now. No usually means not now. Certainly for what we're talking about here. And we talked about it before, an accountability partner. What would it look like, for example, if you all texted me every day about what your lead gen time was that day and how you were able to focus on it? Doesn't need to be me. So if you look carefully at this picture, it is a sign, a paper sign posted on a glass door, and you can kind of see the inside of the office behind it. And this is what an agent at one of my offices did a few years ago. I thought that was pretty creative. Now, I don't know how well this would work at home. But, you know, if you have an office somewhere where you want to work, you can just let people know. All right. I want to move on now for our last part and talk about what they call the myths and misunderstanding. So the first one, this is one of my favorite ones. Multitasking doesn't work, or rather, it isn't productive. So if you are doing multitasking, us human beings, our brains don't work well for this at all. So if you are multitasking or you want to multitask, you're doing your work, whatever it is, you interrupt it to go do something else, you have a switch, and you do the thing, sorry, you switch, then you reorient to the new thing, then you are distracted, you do it, then you switch, reorient back to the main work. If you don't have the multitasking habit, you are going to get it done faster. Example number 1. How many times have you been working on a really difficult email or a complicated email, and you're writing down this thought in the emails, and then something happens, and you come back to the email afterwards and you cannot remember where you were and what you were trying to say? Ever happen? That is an example of why multitasking isn't really productive. There's another example. I don't call people out on it because I don't want to make people embarrassed, but people have been known to show up to our weekly class, and they're usually sit in the back, and when I'm talking or a guest is talking, they're doing something on their phone. It might be perfectly legitimate what they're doing, but here's the important part. If I were to interrupt them from what they were doing and say, Bill, what did the speaker just say? What was the last words out of my mouth? They would not be able to tell me. I promise you. They wouldn't, you didn't hear it. You'd be guessing. Our brains are not able to do two things at once. That's multitasking. Next thing, everything does not matter equally. You're going to make a list of things to do. We've all done it. We've made a list of things to do, and we then have to go through and take out from that list or separate out from that list stuff that really supports our 20%. Everything else, you could do your time doing that, but it's on your list, but it's not a priority. How do you focus on the stuff that's important? You make a list of everything and then you prioritize. And the priority shouldn't be, this is more fun than that one is. And if I do that, I won't have to do the other one. No, it should be focused on what's going to drive forward your success in whatever it is. Number 3, it takes time to develop a habit. Whether that's going to the gym, working out on your home gym, whether it's eating better, whether it's getting to bed at a certain time, or whether it's having a lead gen habit, it takes, they say, 2 months, more than 2 months to establish it. That's a lot of time. Another one of these myths is the idea of a balanced life. So at times, work will be higher priority than other things going on in your life, and at other times, less important. So you're always going to be what we call counterbalancing, not living a balanced life. This is another one of my favorites, willpower. Willpower, there's a wonderful story in the book about probation officers who make more favorable decisions in the morning than late in the afternoon. And that's because of their propensity to not have their willpower. So let me give you a better example that's more close to home. Does anyone here ever go grocery shopping in a grocery store? Have you ever found that if you go grocery shopping in the late afternoon, you spend more money than you do if you go in the morning? That is a perfect example of this. In the afternoon, your energy levels are low. You might be getting hungry, and you will buy all kinds of stuff at the grocery store. You don't need it. You just don't have the strength to say no, like if you'd done the shopping at 10 o'clock in the morning. That's this idea, which is why you want to front load stuff that is less fun in your job, which might be lead gen, depending on the kind of lead gen it is. All right. Next, we have the summary, and we only have a few minutes left. Set manageable priorities. Okay, so let's suppose I'm telling you to do 15 hours of lead gen a week at 3 hours a day times 5 days. That's a lot. What if instead we built up to it? What if we said to ourselves, I am going to just try to do a half an hour every day. I don't need to do 3 hours every day. Let's start with a half an hour. Let's start with 15 minutes and have some small achievements and then build up to a longer period of time. If you are not currently time blocking, you absolutely have to start doing that, or I strongly, strongly recommend it. If you are struggling with people interrupting you or boundary issues, you want to identify all the things that distract you and think about a plan to avoid being distracted by them in advance. As you go through this, I want you to be gentle with yourself. There's a tendency for us to be self-abusive. Oh, you get to the end of the day and you didn't get anything done and you're all down on yourself and you're going into this whole guilt thing. I'm not worthy and blah, blah, blah. Everybody struggles with this. If you are a human being and you're not lying on a beach all day in Hawaii and you have to generate income to pay for mortgages and rents, we all struggle with this. This is not easy. I love teaching this because I struggle with this all the time. I talked about number B already. Set small goals, build up to bigger accomplishments. And you'll be working on this project your whole life. So there you go, guys. Here's the QR code for you to request the slide deck if you'd like it. And I've left some time if you have any questions. I'd be happy to answer your questions now or get any feedback you have for me about our conversation. Any thoughts?
That's great.
You liked it? Thank you, Manish.
Yeah, I really need to implement a lot of this.
Good, good. Do you guys see the whole QR code or is it cut off?
I
You
can
see
see
it
I
all.
see it.
Good. So go ahead and click the QR code and you can get all these slides. And anyone have any other comments or questions?
No, thank you so much. For me, it was very clear and I learned a lot. Thank you.
Okay, great, great. Well, it's good to see you guys all. Thank you for attending. And I will look forward to seeing you guys at our next classes and everything. And thank you for being here.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you so much. See you
You're welcome.
tomorrow.
Bye.